All right, I want to welcome everybody back to the FITSNews studio. 'Tis time for another edition of the Week in Review. This week we've got a lot to cover, and I want to start with
Well, folks, it looks like Will has expired. So I'll be your host on the Week in Review this week. Fortunately, we have Liz Farrell coming into the studio. We're going to be talking about her experience at a SCO1 congressional debate, and then we're going to be covering some Murdocks. And no, Will's not actually dead, but he's had a pretty rough week with a bit of a cold, so his voice is shot. So I'll be sitting in the chair this week instead. But let's get the Week in Review rolling. So, Liz, you had an interesting week. Do you want to talk about that?
I do. Well, do I? That's the question.
Well, we're here. So.
Is this our therapy session? On Monday, I went to Charleston, and I attended my very first congressional debate, also my very first live taped one, which I was actually very excited for. And it was the Republican one. It was Linz Piper Loomis, Nancy Mace, who is the incumbent, obviously, and then Katie Arrington, who is running against her and running pretty hard.
Trump-endorsed challenger.
The Trump-endorsed. Is she Trump-endorsed?
She is Trump-endorsed. Yeah, when we went to the Donald Trump rally, she was up there. And
it was hard to tell.
That is something that she leans into super hard in her campaign.
Yeah, no, I know she's Trump-endorsed because it's on every sign. And in addition, her husband pulls around a trailer with a big, large cutout of her and Donald Trump. It is the most sycophantic thing I think I've seen in a long time. I don't understand it, and I guess we'll get to that. But yeah, it was exciting. Wish you had been there, but I can definitely make it seem like you were there if you want to talk about that.
Yeah, I mean, for the folks sitting at home,
yeah.
Why don't you talk about how the debate started? Because it certainly got off to with a bang.
Yeah. Do you watch the show Veep?
I don't.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Well, it's a parody basically, and it's some people say the most accurate version of what DC is like. Well, what politics, like, is it House of Cards where, like, you know, senators are pushing reporters into the path of a subway? Or is it, you know, where everyone's ruthless and they're doing all these sort of shifty things? But it's more like Veep, which is everybody just sort of vying at this, like, source of power and sticking to no sort of ethos or line of values, or it's just like every man for himself, alliances change to a very hilarious deal. But anyway, lots of ridiculous things happen on that show. And this thing that happened at the debate is very VP in that. So the debate starts and, at first there weren't a lot of people there, but then it filled up. Most of the people there were for Katie Arrington, it would seem. They were wearing the T-shirts. And prior to the debate starting, Katie was I don't know, what's that called? She was like the Flava Flav. Like, she came out and she was like, amping the crowd. Like, she was
pumping some fists.
Yeah, she was like connecting with the audience immediately. So, Nancy comes out and she's very, and like the other woman, Linz, comes out and she's, just like standing there quietly and kind of like drinking their water and like getting ready for the taping to start. But meanwhile, Katie Arrington is like, the little girl on the dance recital who is hamming it up for the crowd. So she's like waving at people. She's like pretending like, let's do a wave from left to right. So I knew that, like, I can appreciate, even though I don't agree with this woman on just about anything, except her shoe choice. Those are fine. I could see the connection and the tapping into the energy, and I can appreciate that. However, so this debate starts. We get two sets of instructions from the mediator, and it is that you can applaud at the beginning and the end. That's when you can make your noise. 2, you are to make no noise otherwise. So to me, I went to Catholic school.
We both went to Catholic
We
school. You
both
get
went-
these instructions when they bring somebody in that they don't want the
Right.
students to embarrass them in front
Right,
of.
exactly. And you're in a school auditorium. Like, let's go back to that. So you're in the school auditorium, which, by the way, was it's a historically black high school. It was built in the late 1800s, finalized in 1910. It's very surreal being in the South and hearing like this is when it integrated, and you're like, wow, I think I was alive then. But it's this sort of like I don't want to say hallowed ground, but it's like significant, right? So, you've got sort of a significant energy there. And this thing starts. Lynn's Piper Loomis wins I don't think it was a coin toss, it was some sort of random way that they chose who gets to go first. And the panelist who got to ask the question first was a high school student. She went to that school, she was valedictorian, and she had a full ride to Claflin, I believe. And so she asked the question, and it's something to the tune of, what will you do to make our community better? And so Lynn's is like, I'm happy you asked that. And she's just like, I've been waiting for this my whole life. And she starts to answer it, and, I can't remember word for word, but it's just, let's pretend it's like, thank you for asking that. I love this community. I love this great country. And the way I will make this community better is endorse Katie Arrington. Like, it just like got into this like monstrous.
Did you feel like you were watching a WWE event? Because
Yes.
were you waiting for somebody to come out with a chair and smack somebody over the head after this?
I wish that somebody had come out and smacked somebody over the head, actually, and just like smacked us all out. We all need to, I think, be smacked with a chair on that night. So then it's just sort of like what's happening. People are cheering. She leaves the stage and she high fives Katie Arrington. So, do you know what a rabbit is in an election?
Hit me.
I don't know if I'm right about this. I think I might be. But from what I understand, a rabbit is a person that you get to run in a primary to extract votes from your competitor or your opponent. And that person then, gives their votes in a way to
Right.
the person that they were, coordinating with. So I don't know if Lynn's Piper Loomis was a rabbit, if she was, and I don't even know if I'm using the right term there, but I think I am. I don't know if that was a strategy from the very beginning. Like, let's have a rabbit, let's get her to get her own little group of supporters, and then we'll pass them on as best we can to Katie Arrington. But obviously there had to have been some coordination in what happened. And it was not very, there was no dignity there. Like, it really started, that's when it fell apart for me, because seeing that kind of behavior from 50 and 60-year-olds is off-putting for me to begin with. But in that moment, we were told to shut up, and they could not control themselves. They jumped to their feet. They were, cheering, as I suppose you would in such a dramatic moment. But and Nancy Mace was very, appropriate. But also, like I said to Will Folks, our founding editor, who is not well today, so
Here I am.
I said to him that, like, the one way to get me to support Nancy Mace would be, I shouldn't say this, but to run Sarah Palin's fart. Can we say that?
Sarah Palin's fart? I think we can.
That's what Katie
can air
Arrington,
that.
yeah. So, because that's what Katie Arrington looked to me. It was just like a little version of,
Did she bring her stool, by the way?
did she have a stool? I don't think she had a stool. She
Last
looked,
time I saw her, she was on stage with Donald Trump, and
that makes
it was
sense.
his podium.
Yeah.
And she is a very small woman, so
She
she
is
literally
huge.
brought
Yeah.
a stool to be able to reach the microphone.
Yeah, that was really surprising. I did not know that Donald Trump was as tall as he was until 2015 when he came to Sun City.
He's a
And
big boy.
He is. His whole family is. But it's imposing and impressive if he's not talking. He cuts a figure.
We're playing tennis. If you've seen those
No,
photos.
I don't want him to play tennis or golf in my presence. But is that what that was? Was a tennis outfit?
Yeah, and for those of you who don't know, imagine Donald Trump in a all-white tennis outfit that
Right.
is so see-through with perspiration that you can see his tidy whities underneath
Teddy Whitey's, yeah.
and his big old gut on top. It was a look.
Yeah. Panty lines on a guy, not my thing.
That doesn't get you going, Liz?
No, it does not.
But
yeah.
people at home might not quite understand what you're talking about here as far as the craziness of this debate. And I
Yeah.
think that Democratic candidate Annie Andrews certainly capitalized on
She
that.
did.
So I think that this might be a good time to cut to her campaign ad kind of illustrating the night
which she posted like almost immediately after. So whoever is on her team is with it and immediate.
So let's throw to that.
Please be seated. Please be seated.
President Trump, Donald J. Trump, America First, the transdemic, pandemic, AOC, socialism.
You have to use an ID to vote.
I find it hard. God, our Father, pigs should lay down or stand up while they're giving birth. Baby panda bears, socialism. Everything she said is a lie.
Quote, saddened, flip-flops, flip-flops, flip-flops.
Britney Spears conservatorship.
A leak of classified information put our national security in grave danger.
Well, that was some crazy shit. I'm Dr. Annie Andrews, and I'm running against those two women. Check out my campaign at drannieandrews.com.
Yeah.
So coming back from that, what was
Wasn't
her
that
quote
good?
exactly?
That was some crazy shit.
That was some crazy shit.
Yeah. Well, she bleeped it, but yeah, it's good. I like to see that candor. I think, we were talking earlier among us here that, for me, this whole thing was sort of disenfranchising because it was akin to the Coliseum. So that moment, when Piper Loomis left a stage, that wasn't really that like completely lost it for me. It was just sort of like, as the debate went on, I was very disheartened that and this is across the country, so this isn't like unique to our area, but the sort of call and response nature of politics anymore, so that it becomes like, Randy Macho Man Savage, where what they're going to do when they come out. So it's almost like the audience is trained by, whether it's Fox News or whatever the media is at the time or what's on social media. They come in with sort of the same language, the same phrases, the same sort of reactions, the same like license, I think, to just sort of act the way you want to act. And it's America, act the way you want to act. But there's sort of a decorum that you would expect there to be with a debate, right?
I mean, I grew up watching like Mitt Romney and John McCain debate Barack Obama, and that was about as interesting as watching golf.
But
whereas Donald Trump in 2015 came in there and he slaughtered his field of primary opponents who are still playing by those rules because he came in there and just completely reinvented what a debate was supposed to be. I mean, what did we have? Little Marco Rubio, low energy, Jeb.
Right.
Wicked, crooked Hillary Clinton.
Right.
Politics has not been the same since then. And
No.
I think that you're frustrated with this post-Trump political world because
I am.
somebody like Katie Arrington plays by that Trump playbook, but
She does well at it.
She's no Trump, though. I mean, that guy's the master of his game.
She's a better Sarah Palin than Sarah Palin was, I think, in at least in this debate. I mean, I've not followed her, too closely at all. But I will say that, again, that connection with the audience was definitely there, which just like from a fundamental, I felt bad. Maybe Nancy Mace doesn't need me to feel bad for her, but I did feel bad. I was like, you're taking away something that, ostensibly this other person prepared for. And that was the problem I had with the Donald Trump and Hillary debate, because we are losing a sense of intellectualism. And like, is it more fun to watch, a lumbering maniac, go around the stage while the other candidate is answering? Always going to be funny, always going to be fun to watch.
I rewatched those clips, I'm not going to lie to you.
Right, absolutely. And then like his description of abortion, you're just like, it's not what, okay.
You get the vacuum and
Yeah, and they pull out the baby and
these beautiful babies.
So off. That triggers me. But so there's just sort of like, you're right, there was like a loss of decorum, I think, during that era. It still exists, obviously. But to see it and like be, I think, a party to that energy and like sitting in there. And of course, Katie Arrington's addressing like the radical left, and I'm sitting right there. I'm like, does she see me? I'm right here. I mean, I don't think I'm the radical left, but I don't care. I'd rather
In
be.
Katie Arrington's book, you are.
Yeah, probably so. And I think the labeling, I can't figure this out. So like, I've been trying to write something on this. And I think that as a writer, particularly like one who wants to be persuasive or to like reach an audience and like, the things that I'm saying, I want you to read all the way through and not be reactive to necessarily, and like give thought, because that's what we are here at FITSNews. It's a marketplace of ideas, open mic. We want people to be able to express themselves, and sort of that's where we can gain that understanding, where we have differences of opinion. And I haven't reached the point where I understand how I feel about Monday night. That's what I'll say. And I think it's just like, especially given what happened on Tuesday in Texas, because, and I don't really want to talk about that, because it's very emotional. I told you earlier I cried off my makeup,
right.
So I'm not ready to talk about that. But it is that sort of feeling of just like hopelessness, and maybe that's the radical left that she's talking about, like we're the bleeding hearts who, I just can't stomach it, right? So on Monday night, it was just like I walked away from that feeling like, well, what are we as a nation? Like, what are we supposed to be? What is politics supposed to be? Is it entertainment? Because certainly it is that. During that debate, and again, I'm not like up on the talking points. I'm not up on the finer points of like Nancy Mace's voting record in D.C., but she apparently voted for something that involves baby pandas. Do you know what it is?
Nancy Mace is a big animal rights person. She did that trip out to Monkey Island, which I tried to get a spot on the boat for. They didn't respond to my request. I'm still a little butthurt because I really wanted to go to Monkey Island.
Yeah.
But she's always out there doing animal rights stuff. But I don't know specifically what the panda issue is.
Some legislation that included money for baby pandas.
But the most important thing that Nancy Mace has done in her time in Washington, D.C. was on, I believe, January 7th. She came out and blamed Trump for his role in January 6th, which, of course, put a giant target on her back and is what might cost her seat. We will see in this primary.
Oh, I think it might. And that is what I think I'm upset about, because she showed some independent thought. She said something that was logical, in my opinion.
And she worked on the Trump campaign. She's not an ever-Trumper.
Right.
She's not somebody who was going after Trump because she didn't like him already.
Yeah, and I know, it's a very diverse country. Right isn't always right for everyone. But there is a kind of an aspect of you have to speak up when you say, you see something's wrong. And it's so much easier just to recite the phrases and tap into that energy of, stop the steal. And yeah, so when she came out of the gate saying that, it was like, oh my God, are we in a new era where we are going to go back to independent thought to some degree? But no, you cannot have a cohesive party with independent thought, which is what I think the Democrats run into. And that might be their core problem in being able to rally their base as effectively as the Republicans have. So this debate, they brought up there's some guy, and context, I don't ever want a guy to stand up in any auditorium yelling, "Save the pandas," and have it be a large guy and say it twice when in a time when, again, let's return to the beginning where we were told to be quiet because it's live.
Because you hate pandas.
I really like pandas. But no, whatever it is, whatever bill she voted for, it's so effective for Katie Arrington to pick one little thing that's easy. It's visual, right? As a writer, you've now put a vision into somebody's head, you've put an image. It is easy to say. It's repeatable. It's funny. So that's always going to be a crowd pleaser. But then you just don't want to see a guy, an adult man, getting up and yelling, "Save the pandas," during a live recording of what's supposed to be an exchange of ideas, right? An exchange of raise your legitimate concerns about Nancy Mace and what she's done for the Lowcountry and talk about, what you will do better. But instead, it was if I guess Trump were an atom and got split, Katie Arrington, in my mind, was what came out of it. So it's this sort of higher energy, frenetic, what are her ideas other than just saying what his ideas are?
And by the way, this is a motif that's playing out across the country. Katie Arrington is not unique. There's a lot of Trump-endorsed candidates, and by the way, to become a Trump-endorsed candidate, at least in these congressional races, you had to kiss the ring in that you had to state that you believe that the 2020 election was stolen.
Right. Which how does that not bother people? Even if you agree with that, to some extent, I don't, which I don't understand, but even if you agree with that to some extent, like, how is it that you don't like the tyranny of government, right? Where ostensibly, like, that's the group of smaller government, what have you. How is it that that is something that you don't agree with, but then you have one man telling you that if you want me to check next to your name, kiss it, and that it's fine? Like, that seems principally against what you're for, that kind of tyrannical leadership, because that's what that is.
It'll be interesting to see what conservatism becomes in the post-Trump world, but we look like we have a lot of years of the Trump world ahead of us, so...
Well, I think he probably has like 6 good years left.
I didn't think
know.
that you assessed Donald Trump as having any good years, so...
I don't. Well, like his entertainment value. So when I was covering him in 2015 briefly, when he came to Beaufort County, this was before no one was taking him seriously. I mean, it was the Republican Party in Beaufort was like, thumbs down. And it didn't just seem like he was a distraction. It was like, oh, okay. So I went to cover his appearance. I don't even know if you could call it a rally. And it was in an auditorium and at Sun City, Hilton Head. And he was so magnetic. And it was just, again, energy, right? Like, so the energy of the room shifted. This is when he gave out the cell phone number for Lindsey Graham. Amazing. I mean, who doesn't want to see that? But then some dude stood up in the, like with allegiance almost, stood up in the audience and he's like, I called it, it's really him. And it was like, wow, it's like all he had to do is tell you to do it and you did it and you feel connected to that somehow. So I think I felt the shift. I went back to the newsroom and I was like, he had some good points and I think he's going to win. And it was just like everyone was, no, he's not going to win. And what did you just say? He had some good points. And it was like, there's something about China. I don't really know. But yeah, so I think that populism, that sort of, it's fun to watch, I guess. But the serious repercussions, we have to decide. Do we have to decide? I don't know. That's where I'm stuck, is what do we want our politics to look like? What do we want that realm to be? Because I'm in a room of Republicans who I don't agree with the party the way it is anyway, like right now. I miss the intellectualism. I miss the conservative party that had a counterpoint. I don't know what the counterpoint is right now other than yuck.
This is a Reagan Republican.
I'm not. I was raised by Democrats and frankly, like, we're barely American. We just got here. So it's still, though, like, still in all. No, I'm not. I will say I registered as a Republican in Massachusetts when I was 18 because I wanted to be in the FBI. And I was like, I want them to take me seriously and not think I'm some radical, hippie or whatever. And that was probably it's not my biggest regret, but certainly I look back on that and like, wow.
Hey, if that's your biggest regret or even near the top of the list, you're doing pretty well.
Well, I just don't like what it's become. I mean, I just don't. And it's because I can see it's fascinating, the marketing of Republicanism, right? That's what it is. It's a product and it's been sold to Americans. And I think that, we are, you and I think differently politically. Will and I think differently politically. But it's all about an exchange of ideas, and it's done in a way that's not vilifying the other, right? So.
But we go into it honestly intending to respect one another and to come out of it just as on good terms as we went into conversations, whereas at a political debate, you're completely coming at it from a different perspective.
Right, but like you can have those lines built in. Like have a good writer on your staff who can come up with some one-line retorts, some, zingers or what have you. But I think it was just this. You have the room. Fundamentally, I think they agree mostly, right? Like these are the core principles of republicanism. And here we have a room of people, and now they're going to debate why one candidate is better than the other candidate. So what happened there instead was Flava Flav, Katie, is ramping up the crowd. And so she's, and you've got Nancy who's like the diplomat or the elder stateswoman who, is maintaining decorum, frankly, something that I would rather see in a debate, obviously, because that's what it is. But instead, it's like the Coliseum. It's just like rabid, lions cheering, rabid lions, I guess. And that was just disheartening for me. And I'm sure that people went home that night and they were like, this is amazing. We had a great time tonight. Katie Arrington's the best. But it made me just sad because I was like, we have lost touch with, like, we're not talking about wrestling. We're not talking about sports teams. We were talking before Red Sox, right? And we were just like, we hate the Yankees, obviously. But I think
the earliest curse word I can remember was going to a Red Sox game as a little kid and the crowd chanting, F the Yankees.
Right.
Which,
Yeah.
if you've ever been to a Red Sox game, that's a staple of any Red Sox-Yankees game.
Yeah, and that's hilarious and it's fun. And that is like, teams, right? Like you do it, you don't like, I don't know, you don't really go home that night and think like, I
hate the Yankees.
Yeah, like the radical Yankees. Well, maybe some people do.
Radical Derek Jeter.
Oh, I like Derek Jeter though.
Lying Derek Jeter.
Yeah, I don't like Johnny Damon. I thought he was disloyal. But anyway, that said, the Red Sox and the Yankees are not making decisions about whether this nation goes to war. They're not making decisions about how tax money is spent. They're not making decisions about what you do with your body, what you do with your guns, whether or not we're going to live in a society that has, children murdered in a school for doing something very ordinary days before summer vacation. Those guys, like that team element, that fun that you get from going to, a team sport. I was in Rome. And this is not just to name drop that, but the concierge of the hotel I was staying at, we wanted to go to a soccer game, football, whatever they call it. And he was like, no, I will not book those tickets for you. I was like, really? You're the concierge? Like, that's your job. You do it. No, I will not. And it's too dangerous for you. It is very vile. People are mean. There are fights. It's awful. It's not for you. And we didn't go. I don't know if that was like the right decision. Should we have pushed it? I don't know. But that sort of fervor and like the frothy nature of that, right? You're like, get whipped up and you're just like, oh, it's my team. Like the other team sucks. Well, that's what that felt like, right? To a certain extent. So again, like the soccer team isn't picking, what defense contractor we're going with or, what education.
I'm a big Halliburton guy myself. I don't know. I think you're more of a Lockheed girl.
Yeah, I like Lockheed. Sure. What was the one with the R? I can't remember. But yeah, that's the thing. It's like ultimately
These are serious positions. That's what you're getting at.
They're
here.
serious positions, and we're treating it like it is an element because the entertainment value, because it feels good to be a part of something, right? You found your people. And I was saying earlier that, when I go to an event like this, it doesn't matter if I agree with the people or not, as long as they're not, doing something hateful and awful. I try to find a humanity in the room, right? Like the thing that's relatable, the thing that tells a story that's on a smaller level, that says something about the bigger issue. And I started to look for that. And ordinarily, there were two women in front of me. One of them was talking about how hard she had worked for Nancy Mace in 2020, I believe it was. Yeah, 2020. And she was talking about, she had worked her butt off and this woman has disappointed her. So that would have been good. Like, I would have started there. I would have pulled out that thread and just talked about, as two friends going to an event. One of them had a Trump hat on. They're both wearing Katie Arrington shirts. They obviously were dedicated to a cause.
Right. When you're covering an event like that, you're always looking for the personal story, talking to people in the room.
Exactly. And you can, that is a universal story. Two friends going to an event. They both work hard. This is the thing that they do. Here's why they do it. But I couldn't. I just was like, I couldn't care less what you do. Like it was a moment of just like pure judgment. And I think that was where I was just like, I don't know what to do with this. I don't know what to do with what I'm watching. People chanting liar at Nancy Mace, which it just doesn't feel right. But if you look in history, Americans, we've been doing this since the beginning. I mean, we were brutal in the 1700s. We were brutal in the 1800s. We went to war with each other. So maybe this is an improvement. I don't know. Do you?
Yeah, maybe it's the rule and not a deviation.
Yeah.
You just haven't been around for long enough to know that.
No, maybe not. And I think ultimately, I don't know. So when people talk about draining the swamp And, maybe we were too friendly in the 80s. Maybe we were too friendly till whenever Newt Gingrich was in the 90s. Maybe that friendliness and that indistinguishable, we didn't know you really couldn't tell. If you look back now, if you look at the Anita Hill hearing, you can't tell the difference between a Republican question.
As Joe Biden, likes to say, he used to go get lunch with the segregationists.
Yes, he did, didn't he?
That's quite a quote.
That's quite a quote. It's quite a brag. Don't know why he would say that. But I think I'm just I've gotten to the point. I've never been particularly swayed by one party. I'm not a party person. I'm much more independent thinking. I think most of us probably are. I think we've allowed the fringes on both sides, all sides, to sort of drag us down. And I think after Tuesday, after what's happened with these children, I don't know, when are the independent-minded people, when do we rise up? When do we say, we're sick of it, shut up? And that's kind of what I felt like saying, shut up. Katie Arrington, have some ideas of your own. Don't stand up there and, memorize index cards of what your Supreme Leader has told you to say. Have some individual... Nancy Mace, do I agree with her? No, I do not. I respect the fact that she's my congresswoman. I respect the fact that on January 7th, she had an actual, genuine, authentic, probably, in my opinion, appropriate reaction to what happened in our nation's capital. But that is getting squashed. That's getting completely deleted because she didn't read the index card. I don't like that. Do you?
Not a huge fan of that. Even if I disagreed with what Nancy said, I would be happy that she's thinking for herself. Thinking for herself
and providing, another outlet. Because again, you have to look at the issues in D.C. analytically. And I don't know, it's just become a cesspool. We went from swamp to cesspool, in my opinion. But yeah, so it was disheartening.
So it's Thursday as we're taping this.
Yeah.
The show doesn't go live till Saturday, so Liz has some time to...
I do.
Get this brain stew out into...
Yeah.
Get it out through the keyboard.
I don't want to contribute to it because, saying Sarah Palin's, flatulence is not a nice thing to say. And I apologize to Katie, actually. But that was the first thing in my head because I become very defensive in that moment because I'm surrounded by people.
I like how you've toned fart down to flatulence.
Well,
I
hate saying the
word.
I hate the word fart. But yeah, that was the first thing that came to mind when I saw her. I was like, well, Sarah Palin left her fart behind, and here it is. But I don't want to be cruel. I don't want to contribute to that because before your time, there was a show called Southern Charm. I know it's still on. But I would write these recaps, and they would be just ruthlessly, mean. They were pretty mean. And, the meanness hopefully led to laughs. That was kind of the thing. But that, again, I don't want to treat my politics like it's Southern Charm. I don't want to
leave your reality on Bravo or whatever trash network that was on. And
exactly. Well, I wouldn't call Bravo trash, but...
we can agree to disagree on that one.
Just kidding. Yeah, it's a palate cleanser. So... But yeah, that's we've turned our politics into, and it's totally robbed us of the ability to communicate with each other, I think. And I worry about that, and I don't know if I should. I don't know if I should just go about my life and never think about politics, never think about what's happening in D.C. because does any of it matter? I don't know. But
yeah, you definitely have to take breaks, especially when you're doing this professionally, and take time where you don't think about it.
Yeah.
Or you will go crazy.
Yeah.
I think we've seen that happen to some people in this profession where you look at their Twitter and be like, they're not doing well.
Right. I know.
And you definitely don't want to let that be you.
No, certainly not. Yeah. But I don't know. I've always of the opinion that we are evolving, not devolving. It's just that we have greater access to each other's lives in a way that we never had before. And there's much more exposure to people that we would never have been exposed to. So, of course, it's sort of jarring. But, yeah, I do. I believe that we're evolving. I do believe that we're heading toward, higher.
A better direction.
Yeah, but it's always... It's difficult, and maybe I'm just sensitive, but usually I'm not. Usually I can go to an event like that and come out with something really good and, learn from it. And I've been accused from both, Republicans and Democrats of being with the other side. So it's always interesting to me, depending on what I write or how I write it, people could never guess at what my actual political beliefs were.
Former registered Republican.
Former registered Republican, right. But like now I'm being at FITSNews, I can be much more transparent, I think, about, how I think. And I'm definitely much more vocal on Twitter than I was at the Packet or the Island Packet newspaper, because you are, you do have to write about a broad spectrum of people. And, I'm just sort of at the point where I'm like, I'm not doing neutrality anymore. So when I see something, I'm going to say something. But
you can see something and say something and still be completely respectful to everybody that you encounter. I think that's something that's lost in this debate these days.
Yeah, exactly. And like I said, I'm not proud of the fact that that's what I thought about when I looked at Katie Arrington. But, I got viciously angry too when I got I saw that trailer because I was at a fundraiser on Hilton Head. And, the Katie Arrington mobile went by, and I was just like, well, this is something. And then just seeing it parked and then when I got to my car, there was a Katie Arrington brochure, whatever you call it, a flyer on my car. And I was like, they touched my car. Like, how dare they? But we're at a political event. Of course they're going to. And whoever's doing her campaign management, I do have to give them props because they were well organized. That's probably what you want, right? People showing up at these things, wearing your shirt. Nancy Mace's team, I think, put their signs on the wrong side of the building, and they had to go retrieve them and change that. But yeah, there's a pathway that says Katie Arrington, like you're leading in there, people with the shirts on being, smiling and nice. And then she's connecting with the crowd. She's got some zingers against Nancy that even included Britney Spears. Did you know about that part?
No.
She accused Nancy of only caring about, I think based on her Twitter feed, of Britney Spears' conservatorship, cannabis, and pets. And that was a crowd pleaser, of course.
Following Nancy on Twitter, that's not altogether inaccurate.
Really? I didn't notice that.
Do you follow her?
I do. But the Britney Spears thing, I don't remember her being...
Oh yeah, there was a minute there where she was real free Britney, but who wasn't?
Exactly, free Britney. That's right.
Britney is free, and I don't know if y'all follow Britney, but she is going wild.
She's free.
She is very free.
That's not my but again, we can talk about that another day. But that's
a whole episode.
That is a whole episode. But yeah, Nancy Mace didn't have as many zingers or any really. Her one thing was that you didn't beat Joe Cunningham because you are crazy, basically. And then the only way, Katie said to Nancy, the only reason you beat Joe Cunningham was because Trump endorsed you. So is that all it's going to take now?
We'll see.
Yeah?
And we'll be covering it.
Yeah, we will. Do you think what's going to happen? So did you see what happened in Georgia, that a lot of Democrats voted in the Republican to get, Purdue, downvote him like he's on Reddit? Do you think that's going to happen in the first?
I don't know. I think that Georgia has a level of political activity and energy that we don't have here, just given those Senate races and the amount of dollars that get spent in Georgia.
Yeah, that's true. But
there wasn't a lot of money spent in Lindsey Graham's race, but those two Georgia runoffs last year were just, for the control of the U.S. Senate. So obviously those were incredibly invested in races.
Yeah, and it was it was very huge, very surprising outcome too. Honestly. Pleasant.
But if I'm Reverend Warnock right now, I'm shaking in my boots.
Yeah. But I kind of hope it happens in Beaufort County. I hate to say that, but I'm not really sure what. I think we'll talk more about what the Democrats have in their primary and what they have at stake. But it would be kind of fun to see that. And again, I'm just totally reversing myself because I'm wouldn't that be a fun strategy? And they come in and they do the.
You kind of want to see this shit show?
Well, yeah, you're talking I'm talking about it like it's a sports team, and I don't want to do that. I want to get away from that. I want to be a better receiver of politics and a better, I want to have better output when it comes to politics. I want to contribute in a more positive way.
Well, we'll see if the needle moves in that positive direction. I think that we got a lot farther to descend until we rebound into that.
Oh, you think?
Yes, I think so.
You don't think we've hit rock bottom?
No, I think we're far from it.
What does it look like?
It looks like a recession coming in the next couple quarters and possibly the Third World War.
Okay. Well, I wasn't expecting you to go that dark.
I'm just giving you my...
websites are you looking at?
Politico, CNN, the usual.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it can't. I mean, yeah. Okay. Well, I'm glad that a lot of people out there are preppers, so I'm sure they'll do fine, and I'll just take the first bet out of town, I guess.
I have 3 boxes of pasta in my pantry.
I have no pasta in my pantry. I have no canned goods. Yeah, I'm dead. It's fine. I've had a good life. When the apocalypse comes, I'm just gonna.
So why don't we take a break here, and we'll give you a Murdock update.
Oh yeah.
Already, all the cameras are still running, which is a good thing.
Yeah.
So let's talk Murdocks. What do you got?
Well, this week on the podcast, we talked about, gave everyone sort of an update on where the boat crash case is and how pivotal it sort of is to the whole thing, and how it's been one of those things that you don't really talk about much in the sense that there's other more.
It's kind of a back burner.
Yeah.
Side plot.
Yeah, it's super.
But it's also what brought the case into the public eye.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it brought the case into the public eye. It is possibly, I mean, if Alec Murdock ends up being more than a person of interest, could possibly provide motive. It has led to the receivership, which has exposed more alleged crimes. It has, there's tort reform law that was being considered. I mean, it could affect such a more widespread range of issues in the state. And it is what brought about the obstruction of justice investigation by the state grand jury prior to Maggie and Paul's murders. So super important. One of the things I wrote about this week was the direct message that the lawyer for one of the lawyers, Greg Parker, who is the owner of Parker's Kitchen, which is a gas station and convenience store here that is very popular. It's very clean, you get a little discount if you use it. It's, generally speaking, a very positive experience when you go there. So he is from Savannah, and he is fighting really hard this case because he's one of the co-defendants with Alec Murdock, because Paul Murdock, before the crash, purchased beer and seltzer, alcoholic seltzer there. And he was underage and, used his brother's license. And so it's sort of the core, where that happened. So, what's the liability there? Obviously, it's going to be decided by a jury, probably a jury. But
sometime in 2045, if the
right,
Parker's attorneys
that's what I was
have their
saying.
way.
I was like, will we still have juries then? I don't know. But the legal team has sort of expanded. It's sort of almost comical because you see on the plaintiff's side, not to call Mark Tinsley a country lawyer, but he lives in Allendale County. He's an Allendale County lawyer. He works at a small law firm, a mom and pop type thing. And so you see this sort of, more maybe grassroots is the right word. I'm not sure for Mark Tinsley, but on the one side, and on the other side, you've got very glossy. You have Debbie Barbier, Mark Moore with Nexon Pruitt. You have very maybe more the lawyers you see on TV. Maybe more TV friendly, glossy lawyers. So you have that happening. You have this really big fight happening, and then you have a second case. So there's 7 cases total with the boat crash, which is kind of crazy when you think about it. It started with the 2019 one, and then you have the other 4 that are for the personal injury. So of each of the other passengers on the boat. Then you have the insurance one, which has been settled. That was a federal one in which Alec Murdock's insurance, for good reason, now that we know a lot about Alec Murdock
right.
and insurance policies, was we're not paying that. And the court agreed. So then you have this other case, which is this civil conspiracy case. And it is an interesting one because basically it's it's adhered to the 2019 case. It is something that came out of the, we've written about it, spoken about it, but the trailer for a possible future documentary produced by Vicki Ward, who was the Jeffrey Epstein reporter, one of them, pre-Julie K. Brown. You have People magazine producing it. And somehow this woman got confidential court materials. And in that are pictures of Mallory's dead body, Mallory Beach. And that is a jarring, awful thing. I don't know what decision process, I don't know what went into that, why that was necessary. Did you watch that trailer? Okay, so it's not up anymore, obviously. And to the people out there who say that FITSNews published it, no, we did not. So, and I don't know where that came from, I can guess. But that video has like the overlay of Alec Murdock's 911 call and Mallory's body. So like that's the image that's on the screen, as if those two things are like the same, you know, they're not. So, and we all know how Mallory died. There's no mystery to it. The question is, whose fault is it? So that comes out. Mark Tinsley files another lawsuit, the civil conspiracy, and now he is suing Greg Parker individually as a person. He is suing two of Greg's lawyers. He is suing two private eyes and a private insurance their agency. He's also suing Parker's Kitchen, like the corporation. So you have this lawsuit that is now about, were you guys harassing? Like, were you guys doing some sort of like, I don't know, like psyops, basically, like psychological operation that is meant to weaken the resolve of the Beach family. So we've established that. This week, I mean, it's just been motion after motion after motion in this case, because Parker's wants to stop two of the people that were hired to help with the tort reform that Greg Parker wants to do, as well as, apparently, as it has come out, getting negative information on the Murdock family. So this is pre-murders. He hired a marketing agency to help him sort of dig up dirt, right, in part. And so as part of that, they hired a private eye named Sarah Capelli out of Charleston. And Mark has been trying to get the materials that these two entities have produced for Greg Parker. So if you're into like legal dramas, which I kind of am.
You picked the right profession.
Right. It's very hyper-technical. It's very cutthroat, ruthless almost. It's Parker's trying to stop whatever is in those documents, them getting to Mark Tinsley. So a whole thing happened procedurally. I will not bore people with the details, but they do get into Mark's hands because of Mark, it seems like, acted fast after the judge's law clerk told the crowd of lawyers over email that, yeah, he's ruled that, the judge has ruled that Mark can have the documents. And there's two Marks, so I should probably call him Tinsley. There's Mark Moore, who's also on Greg Parker's team. So Tinsley gets the documents, apparently, and apparently goes through all of them, I think. That's what I attended the hearing on May 9th. And obviously the Parker's team doesn't want him to have it, whatever's in them. So it was like too late, he already had them. So it's just kind of fun. I shouldn't say fun. It's interesting to watch the back and forth because there's things that are happening that I just, sort of above my understanding level, I think, because I'm not a lawyer. And like I said, hyper-technical. But this all brings us back to what I was saying. One of the lawyers on Parker's glossy team DM'd the law clerk on Instagram, which...
Sliding on in,
right? So it's like, okay, well, one, not appropriate, like, interesting way. So I was like, how old is this attorney? He's younger. I assume that the law clerk might be younger as well.
Of the sliding generation.
Yeah, of the sliding generation. So they had an emergency hearing last week, and I think it was on Thursday. And it was basically the Judge Bentley Price, who is I think he's the interim chief of the 14th Circuit for judges. And he's sort of just like, it was kind of like your disappointed TV dad. Ugh. He was just like, so this happened. I brought you all here. You want to tell me what this is all about? And it was so awkward because Mark Moore Well, he's basically like, because he's the senior counsel on this, he's just like, yeah, I did not approve of that. I did not approve that. That it was not something. I got no good explanation for it, really, other than it was easier for the lawyer to contact. So at any rate, I assume that's not going to happen again. But it's one more little dramatic thing that has happened in this case that sort of, I think that most of us look at as just like a simple wrongful death, personal injury case that has turned into so much more. And I don't think that we can sort of, not to keep using the word gloss, but gloss over the significance of this case and what it might mean beyond just the Murdocks and beyond just, personal injury, wrongful death and all that.
We certainly shouldn't gloss over the glossy lawyers.
We shouldn't gloss over the glossers.
And don't worry, there's not a legion of members of our audience which pay attention to every word that you say and take a tally of
I know.
the repetition.
I don't care. I hope they do. Yeah, I do know. I'm not going to practice not saying it, so I don't even know how many times I have said it. But it has been, it's an interesting case. It's like a tennis match and the back and forth. And I think that Mark Tinsley, Mark Moore, Debbie Barbier, I think these people are going to go like scorched earth on this. I've heard from so many people in the industry, not ours, but the legal one, I don't know what you'd call it, talking about how this is just about billable hours on Parker's side. So like the attorneys are stretching this out and like indulging what some say might be like Greg Parker's ego, stretching it out so that they can get more.
I mean, if you're one of Parker's attorneys and this dude, like, just me looking at this from the outside, I'm like, why the hell is he dumping all this money into this? But
Right.
if you're one of Parker's attorneys, you're not going to say that.
No,
You
certainly
say, all right,
not.
we'll file that.
Yeah, no, I've got some ideas. I'll file this. So yeah, he replaced his legal team in the boat crash with the glossier attorneys, and then there's even glossier attorneys for the the
I
civil
feel like I'm in a Home
conspiracy.
Depot,
Right.
the paint aisle here.
Yeah, what's interesting though is Debbie Barbier's, I believe, a criminal defense attorney. Like that's her specialty. So I don't know what quite that element is yet with the civil conspiracy. And I think, in looking at it, I'm wondering if it has to do with the there was an iPad that Stephen Smith's mom had that belonged to Stephen Smith, and apparently two, and I think they're saying, Mark Tinsley's saying it's the two private investigators who came to Sandy and said they wanted to help her solve that case, and they took the iPad and destroyed it, and that was an open case. So yeah, did you just take evidence and destroy it? Like, what did you just do and why? So that might have something. I mean, I don't know, but yeah, it's a real, with all of the intrigue and sort of craziness of this case, I think that we're forgetting that this has actually this is could be like the origin story of the Murdock's downfall. This is the thread that Mark Tinsley started pulling at, and maybe it got hit too late. Like the whole sweater's gone now, and you have Greg Parker. He's not, honestly. I mean, like lawyers don't want to hear this, but I don't think he's wrong in like the tort reform that he's seeking. And just in the sense, I know that there's ramifications for purveyors of alcohol, right? Like what liability do we have if somebody comes in my shop and buys some beer? Do I now own that person? Like, does that person's
Right.
life decisions afterward, like I'm liable for? I think that's an interesting question, but ultimately, this is such a different situation. I mean, you have a kid that is significantly shorter than what his license said he was, and he's using a credit card that is not his, and
It doesn't take a genius.
It doesn't take a genius, and there's policy in place. There's policies in place to prevent this from happening, and
I said this is somebody who's going to get carded until I'm like 45.
You're going to get carded, I know. But I think I do miss that. I haven't been carded since I was 18.
I think the only thing that was, we got some bad hairlines in my family, so that might
really?
stop me from getting carded sooner than that. But
Yeah.
right now, Card City.
Yeah. Are you humiliated when that happens?
Hell no, I know what I look like.
Yeah.
Come on.
Well,
I have it ready. It's right next to the credit card.
Yeah, exactly. And actually, the fact that you have it ready, from what I understand, is a sign that they need to be very careful in looking at your license, because it means that you're like anticipating the cashier thinking that you're or is onto your game or whatever.
I just know what I look like.
But don't you think? So I think I've thought about this a lot, and there is a responsibility that business owners have too, in terms of like, if you're going to make a profit, if you're going to be, this is a very profitable business, I would assume. I don't think gas is profitable, not for gas stations. You probably do have a responsibility to make sure that, you're not putting alcohol. That's why we have laws.
I was a bartender, and you would very carefully watch your patrons and make sure they weren't too drunk. And we would call people cabs, or we would drive them home ourselves if they were regulars.
Really? You would drive them home?
Yeah, we had a regular who was up there in the years, and she would occasionally have a couple of glasses too many, and we would drive her home to make sure that she did not get in her car. And
that's very nice.
I mean, on a good day, she might cruise into a telephone pole. So,
oh gosh,
a couple glasses of Chardonnay later.
So, did you have a fake ID when you were in USC?
I was kind of a loser. I don't mean,
No.
I didn't go to 5 Points, which, by the way, flooded this week.
Did it?
Did you see the pictures
No,
of that?
I didn't.
Like some dude's Mustang was like floating down the middle of 5 Points.
It was a Mustang. That's pretty weird. Yeah, I've never been to 5 Points. Obviously, I didn't go to USC. So you never been to 5 Points?
I've been there. I just didn't.
It just wasn't like your hangout.
It's one of those things where like you're either a 5 Points person or you're not, and
Okay.
I was not in that crowd.
I gotcha. Well, apparently it's like a big time, like they've cracked down on fake IDs there, right?
Dick Harpootlian's big initiative there.
Yeah. Well, interesting. I did know that at one point, but yeah, I mean, you really didn't need a fake ID in Boston because, it was way before your time. So, but yeah, I do think that there is a certain amount of responsibility that you have to have. And so what does that look like, And that's really just the question here. And
it's a lot easier at a bar because you get to sit there and look in somebody's eyes, unless it's a super
True.
slammed bar where that's the only time I got nervous is, when you don't have people sitting at the bar and you have somebody come up in a couple times in an hour and order, like I've had people order doubles and like 3 times in an hour for a couple hours. And I don't know if you're just like a unit or if you're going to go crash your car into a tree on the way home.
Right. And I think, a convenience store like Parker's is a very fast transaction. I mean, you're not in there hanging out. But again, like there's things that you have to do, and looking at the ID carefully, at least at the height, at least at the weight, at least at like scrutinize it a little, like just a little for the rest of us, like, because the thing is that like, I don't drink and drive, but I kind of strongly feel that I should not die that way. So I would really like, other people not to drink and drive, and I guess they're going to, right? So
Yes.
Whatever we can do to prevent somebody from, I think we should do. That's just a personal opinion. But I will say this. I was talking to a lawyer in the Lowcountry, and he was telling me about Mark Tinsley, and he is a Southern guy. And he's like, Mark Tinsley will suck the marrow out of your bones. So I think, I haven't, like, I saw him at the hearing and could see, he really didn't have much to say in the hearing because it was basically the judge just asked him a question. But I think we could be in for, like, some serious, like, Roman times, behavior here.
Going back to your earlier Coliseum references.
Exactly. These are very thematic.
A knockdown, drag out legal battle here.
Yes,
So for people who don't care about legal minutia,
yeah.
I think we're going to have some stuff coming in the coming weeks that I don't know how much of that you want to talk about, but that kind of exits that realm and gets more into
substantive. Yeah, I don't know. I don't think we can talk now about that, but today I will say that there's a hearing happening in Union County related to the boat crash case, because let's not forget the receivership is attached to the boat crash case, which means that the people that are going through Alec's finances are, because of the boat crash case. Well, Alec did, filed, what would you say? I can't remember the word it is, but he basically said, I don't want Maggie's stuff. Like, I have no entitlement to Maggie's estate. So he did that, filed it from jail, and the receivership was like, well, that's a violation of this because we froze your assets. The court froze your assets. You're not supposed to do that. So that is what they're arguing right now because they wanted Alec to be found in contempt of court and to face some sort of sanctions related to that. John Marvin Murdock, who is his younger brother and the personal representative for Maggie's estate, he filed some motions in support of his please don't punish Alec. So we'll see what happens, Seems like it's just more drama. I love drama, though, so that
But
part.
on the weeks like this that are primarily legal drama, we are reading all these filings, all these motions, so that on the weeks that the big substantive things happen, we're going to have way better coverage than anybody else.
Yeah, oh, God, yeah. We are in deep when it comes to, we read those documents over and
Shout
over
out to
again.
Jennifer Wood.
And Jen Wood. We have, the best researcher in the world, and Mandy and I are very much of the belief, and I respect anyone in the legal industry who actually does this, but we will read documents over and over again because they change, the meaning changes and you notice new things. And there are some things that are going to be coming out and, there are old pieces of it too that will suddenly make sense. And I think that
happens all the time in this case.
Absolutely. And there are conversations that I'm remembering that we had directly after the murders in terms of where did this information come from? What's going on here? And
all these things that seem like random pieces, and we were discussing some of those earlier, these things that right now without the context, you're like, what?
Yes.
What is this? It doesn't make any sense. Well, in 3 months, it probably will.
Well, and I think we're getting answers. I think we're going to have a lot of answers about some things. But yeah, at FITSNews, we are, the people who have been up sort of ahead of this. And a lot of that is because we've kind of had a scholarly approach to it at this point, which is that we've been studying this for a long time, and I think that is going to be even more apparent as our coverage continues of the Murdock murders, crime and corruption saga.
The official title.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
All right, well, in the words of Will, keep it tuned to FITSNews, folks.
Yeah, keep it tuned.
Thanks for watching the Week in Review. I hope that y'all enjoyed getting a little bit of a different perspective and a different format on the show this week. Will is making a rapid recovery, so he should be good to go by this time next week. Have a great Memorial Day weekend, and stay tuned to FITSNews because we got some big stuff coming next week.